Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. I'm OYOKO, but you can call me V, and I am here today, as you can see outside, with a musician and producer who works under the name Moonkay. But your real name, I don't know if I should mention now your real name.
No, you can say my real name. It's so good.
Jordan. But if you want to know a bit more about his work and if you want to see what he's up to online, then definitely look him up under the name Moonkay. In terms of the conversation, it's going to be very informal. It's another sacred discussion, and this time we are going to talk about mortality, how we view death in society, how we view death personally, what our relationship is with death, and if it's linked to creativity in some form, and I guess about existence in general. So, yeah, what are your first thoughts
Yeah.
regarding this topic?
I think for me, I think it's something which in recent times, or I'd say over the past year, something I haven't really thought about as much. But I think in my sort of younger years and, in the first few years when I was in London, it was something that definitely crossed my mind a lot. And so it was really interesting when you kind of invited me to have this talk with you. It kind of gave me the opportunity to think about a lot of things, or a lot of the experiences that I went through that have happened in the previous years, and kind of reflect on a lot of things that have gone on. So I thought that was really, really cool, and yeah, really, really nice to sit and talk about it, basically. Yeah. How do you find it? You got any initial thoughts?
Well, I guess excited is not the right word for me, but I am keen to explore this topic. I guess my relationship with death and people dying around me, it's quite, I don't know, some people might say it's unconventional, but it's also based on my upbringing and the culture that I grew up in. So I feel like maybe in Western society it's viewed as something that you should steer away from and that you should fear for, and I guess avoid even in conversations, because it's too scary and you cannot control it. There's no grip that you can, like, is it grip exert? No, that's not the word. That's not the way
No,
what I want to say.
can't.
What is it that I want to say?
Can't manage or control?
Yeah, I guess something that's simply out of your control and something that is inevitable, and therefore we don't want to engage with it. So yeah, I guess those are my initial thoughts. But I had a few questions written down, so I feel like that's a great starting point. So my first question to you, and we can just explore as we go, but what is your personal relationship with death, or I guess maybe just with life? It's how you view it, and is it linked in some shape or form with how you create your art, I guess?
I think, so on that first point, I think my relationship with death is, it's a tough one to answer. I think, some people will go through a lot of things and they'll, like their relatives will pass away or friends will pass away and stuff. I've had, I think similar to some people, I've had pets pass away and stuff, and obviously that evokes an emotional response. I think the one big one I've had was my best friend from when I was a kid. He passed away from cancer.
Oh no.
A few years ago, and it was one of those very surreal experiences. Just because, I think given the age that like me and you are, it's not one of those things you really think about on a regular basis. And I think, especially when it comes to things like music and creativity, you're always trying to, at least in my opinion, I'm always trying to grow and build something, and that's the kind of thing which takes time. And I think death is one of those things that can really take that away from you, or has sometimes led me to question, what my goal is out of doing music and trying to create something that's greater than myself. Um, I think
Is that your goal when it comes to creating?
I still don't know the exact answer. I think as far as if I think about why do I release music, I think the reason I make music is because I want to reach a point where music is my life and music is my career, and I can do what I want when I want, and music will give me the foundation to do that, and me kind of being able to share that music and those emotions with other people will resonate with them and hopefully have a positive impact on them. I think a lot of my music can be quite negative and quite dark, and part of that is because it's a release for me, and part of that is because I know how it feels like to be in that space, and I think being able to listen to someone else who maybe can resonate with the emotions that you're feeling can help in that kind of a situation. But yeah, I think when I was younger, it was something that I used to kind of, I don't want to say I was scared of death. It was more like I accepted death was a part of my existence, and whether it happened sooner or later, I didn't really care, because I think my worth wasn't there. I didn't feel that internal self-worth. I think definitely recently, like really in the past year and a half, I feel like I've reached a point in my life where I actually do fear death, which is a weird feeling, because I feel like
Far more now than back then?
Far more now. Yeah, I think so. I don't know how you found it. When I first moved to London, I was 17, and I didn't have any friends who lived in London. I didn't really know anyone, and it kind of just leads to that kind of downward spiral where you let your negative emotions kind of circle around one another and just constantly drive you down deeper and deeper. And the kind of isolation of that's really can really have a negative impact on your mental health, I feel like. And yeah, at that point in time, I was kind of just like, what happens. I didn't see not that I didn't see a future for myself, but I didn't have goals that I was trying to reach within my future. I was kind of just letting life happen. And only, I've been really working on myself and my music over the past year and a half now, and it's kind of given me something to strive for, something to work for, and something to actually be fearful of losing my life for, which is a weird thought, but you don't, gosh, I don't know what the word is, but I think there's certain things in life where there are things I want to do, there are things I want to see, there are experiences I want to live now, which I've never wanted to do before. Okay. I want to, these sound like small things, but they're actually big things for me. I want to perform live. I want to see people smile.
You've performed live already?
I have performed live, but I want more and more. I literally okay. I want to perform live and it be some real. Can I swear?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I won't swear. It's I don't have to swear.
Okay. Well, what is it that you want to say?
Just
I can cut this part
the S word. Just shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Wait,
it's like no, I want to, I want to do really crazy shit. I want to do sick performances. I want to work with okay, and this is the thing. So there's a lot of negativity within London, and I think that's just part of living on top of 1,000 people all the time. But there's but there are so many amazing people in this city, and there are so many amazing creative people. And once you actually acknowledge that and accept, I genuinely find that I can always find negative within things, and it's never been a good thing. And once I've started to really look for positive, and especially within the creative scene, rather than thinking to myself, oh, screw that guy, his work's so amazing, I'll never be like that. The way I try and think now is, that guy does amazing stuff, how can I work with him, how can I meet him, how can I understand how he's gotten to that point. And it's opened my eyes up so much, and it's made me really yeah, just want to live more and want to go out more and just really experience things which I haven't experienced in years, and it's made me, it's changed me so much this year.
Nice.
I'm really, really going on a long one here, but basically, I'm scared to death. Don't hit me with no crazy things lately. But yeah, how do you feel about it? About death, and at least for the creative process for you.
Well, I noticed in my own creative process is that I do find more inspiration, or at least that's how I perceive it, more inspiration, more content in the undesirable, in the not so pleasant experiences. I feel like something that draws drama, or something that involves some kind of harm. Not to say that I romanticize that, but I realize throughout my life, experiences that I've been through, it's the not so nice experiences that has led me to create some of my best work, even though not all of my best work is out there for people to experience. But in my opinion, I feel like that's when I managed to deal with it in a way that I find beautiful. So in a way, I find it motivating. Not to say that I enjoy all the pain and suffering out there, but it is also one of my, I guess, drivers. I don't know, that's not the right word, but
A source of
incentive,
creativity,
or
kind of,
yeah, to create something that might, touch people in a way that could be used as healing in a way, and it's therapeutic. It's a nice way to reconstruct things that you've been through, as well as find healing and find a way to process it in a way that you can now have peace with. And I think that is nice and beautiful and self-soothing in a way. I find it more harder to, like, I guess, highlight or amplify the nice things in life in my work personally. Outside of my work, I can do it like with ease, but really focusing on the joys of life, then I don't know, if my work doesn't really show that. It's a bit strange. But yeah, that's my, I guess, when it comes to creativity, it is easier for me. So I am trying to challenge myself to not only lean towards the negative impacts of being alive in this time, you know. So
Can I add something to that?
yeah.
I think what you say is really valid. I think, and at least, because I get what you're saying, and I find the same with my music, where I tend to focus on the negatives. And I've tried to understand why that is, and it could obviously be different for you. I think the reason I found for myself is that I almost find it as like a form of self-therapy or self-healing, where you're kind of, you're releasing this emotion, or you're sharing this emotion, and through sharing it, it helps you to move on and to progress.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a, I think I can, I don't think, like, I think if you heard my music and nothing but my music, you'd think I was just, like, the most depressed, down in the dumps kind of person. And I think it's more that for me, it's just, that's how I get things out, and that's how I help myself move on with certain things.
It's a way to process it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, it's really a way to process, and the kind of the way that at least I think this is the reason that I work that way. Like, when I was super young, like, the first instrument I learned was the drums. And the drums are it's a very physical instrument compared to certain other ones.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember when I was a kid, like, being angsty teen, whatever, like, if I was ever really angry, I would just go and smash out the drums for like half an hour straight.
Oh.
And then after that, I would just
You
feel relieved, you feel calm, you feel relaxed. And I think there's a part of me that's always held on to that, and the ability the effects I learnt through that. Obviously, the way I produce music now is very different. I'm doing actual music production, not just playing the drums, but I think there's always an element of that kind of emotional release and emotional, aiming to achieve like emotional stability, kind of a thing. But yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Do you think that pain and suffering is necessary to create good art? And obviously, this is very subjective. I'm not saying that this is a thing that is universal, but in your view, do you think that that's needed to create art that will reach masses and that people will find comfort in?
I think yeah. I think this is a very subjective question. I think there are, you know, I think depending on your attitude in life, you'd get a lot of different answers. So I can only really talk about my subjective experience. I think for me there is a degree of that, just where it plays that role of kind of a self-healing process. That's not to say that I don't think there's incredible art out there that does exist as a result of happiness. But, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that some of the most, you know, amazing artists have these very, what's the word, like very tragic ways of acting, or almost like, not, you know, physical self-harm, but, you know, very self-destructive personalities. I think a lot of them will have gone through certain experiences in their life that, whilst caused them a lot of pain, the music they release based on that pain can be, you know, life-changing for certain people when they hear it. And you know, I think that's not only something that exists within music. I think that exists within art. You know, I think it exists within we talked about him last time, but there's a dancer called Black Cane who, his dance is really, really visceral, and it's really quite dark. And I'm not like a massive dance guy. Like I you know, I know different forms of dance, but seeing the way he moved and stuff was one of the first times I really was passionate about watching someone perform, you know, that kind of a dance act, or that kind of, you know, that kind of thing in general. I think there is something to be said about positivity. Like, I think this is the thing. So I think if every single artist and every single musician, all work was based out of you know, misery or sadness or death, I think it would be quite a dark place. Like, almost once that set the tone, then that becomes the standard, and there isn't that variety. I think the fact that we do have pieces of music that are a lot more positive, or at least have a tone of a lot more positivity, kind of helps give that contrast. And like, you know, the reason I feel like people like Black Cane is so visceral and so interesting, is, at least for me, is because when I compare that to something like, and this isn't to diss b-boy dancing, because I think b-boy dancing is sick as well, but it's a lot more of a positive, uplifting form of dance. I feel like it's when you have those kind of contrasts, that's when you really come to see. We've got to learn. What do you think, little guy?
Oh my god!
Nah, it's all good.
It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. Have a lovely day. No.
No, but yeah, I think, and it's not. There's a word for it. It's a concept I've been thinking about a lot recently.
Sorry, I completely.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Got a little dog action going on.
Okay.
But yeah, I think, and I think this is something that applies to all facets of life. But you know, all suffering is relative, and all happiness is relative. You only appreciate the good times because you know how tough it can feel to be in those bad times, and vice versa. And I think with art, you need that mix, or that variance, to really appreciate the different sides of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very subjective thing, and I think, like, when I try to make music, I really struggle to make happy songs, and I know people who will push themselves to do that stuff. Like, for example, I've recently been working with this girl who does a lot of like placement and sync work, where you'll be essentially, you know, making tracks for other artists or whatever. and a lot of the kind of stuff they want is very uplifting. And I found it interesting to try and get into that space or get into that mindset where you're not writing lyrics about that. And like, it was really funny. We were working on stuff, and like, I was trying to like, she was trying to finish a line about how this guy was stuck in her head. The idea being like, oh, I'm so in love with this guy, he's stuck in my head. And I was like, oh yeah, stuck in my head like a migraine. And it was just like,
You went straight.
she was like, that's not what I'm going for at all.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
That's interesting.
And I think it's really, it's based on your experience. I think, again, she is one of those kind of people who she looks for the best in everyone.
Yeah.
And that shows in her work. She's a lot more positive, a lot more uplifting. And that's not to say that I don't look for the best in people, but I think it's just when I release creatively, it's very much finding the worst in myself and then releasing that, and then being able to live my life without having those thoughts,
Okay.
Do you find similar in your creative process, or have you ever tried going in the positive side of things?
Well, I have tried, and I do have like some pieces that are more, sweet, I guess. But usually it's about exploring love or intimacy, but it's not always stuff that I go for or want to release. And I do find it hard to explain or express myself when it comes to these really, I guess, intimate experiences. But yeah, I do try to like, dabble in both positive and negative. But I am more drawn to the negative experiences and how to use that as fuel to create art. And I feel like it's also my comfort zone, so it's easier for me to do that. It's my default mode to do that. So yeah, maybe I should try and do more positive things. But yeah, if I don't feel like doing it, I'm not going to force myself to create something simply because I want to challenge myself again. I've done that several times, challenging myself, and it just causes more stress. So I don't know if I want to do that again or add another layer. But yeah.
Can I ask you a question actually on the back of that? Do you find with the music that you release and your creative output, do you ever find that having an impact on your friendships or your relationships? Just given that, and I think, sometimes from the outside looking in, people could think that you could be a negative person, or especially when it comes to things like family. Do you ever feel like you have to reel things in because you don't want it to be too dark, or you don't want, you don't want your mum
No, I will literally go to the fullest. I had people tell me maybe you should not say this or not portray that in that way because it might frighten people. And I try to consider that too. So sometimes I have done that where I'm like, tone it a little bit down, repackage it in a way, but then still talk about the same thing. But maybe not as like strong as I would want it to be, I guess. But yeah, I tend to go full on, like go hard or go home. I love it. I do not care if you resonate with it. You resonate with it. If not, that's fine too. It's not for everyone, and it's also very personal. And sometimes I distance myself. I am not always the protagonist in all of my work. Sometimes it's like experiences that other people have gone through and they told me, and I use that as inspiration. So it's not always me being centered in my own work, and I like to keep it cryptic in a way. So even if you listen to my work and then you meet me, it's like day and night, but it's not always the stuff that you hear about. It's not always about me. It can be like, instances where I had like a brief moment with someone, or it's about someone else, or something that I saw on TV. It can be anything. So I like it to be, a bit mysterious in a way where you don't know if I'm the person I'm talking about or if it's something else. Yeah, I think it keeps it lighthearted in a way for me,
Yeah.
and fun. Because I don't want to, um, I guess revisit, if it's in my own experience. If I want to write about that, I don't want to revisit trauma to then inflict that, again, simply
Yeah.
because I want to create art.
Yeah.
It needs to have some kind of purpose or function, for me, and usually it is to write it off, or to show solidarity, or you know create a reminder for people, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, some people, I don't know, I might need to ask what people think,
I'd say don't do it.
of
No.
the
Yeah.
what did you, when you first, let me think, how did we meet again?
We went. Was that event?
Oh yeah, we went to an event. Yeah. Well, when you heard my music, what was the first thing that you heard of the work that we have online?
I think. Well, okay. I think so. So, give it some context. So, me and OYOKO met at this kind of. I don't know how to best explain it, but it was kind of this event where they were getting different creatives together, from different kind of backgrounds. So, like whether you're a photographer or a modeler, or creative director, like that was your goal, kind of a thing. So you're really meeting people with very different backgrounds, very different views on art and all this kind of stuff. And like you can obviously you do get a degree of when you start to meet a lot of people in the creative world, you can kind of get a sense of what kind of work they make or what their kind of output is based on those first impressions. AKA, we're both dressed in nothing but black right now, and we're both talking about how much we love writing depressing lyrics.
But I was actually thinking of wearing something like more colourful.
Really?
I changed actually, because I was in white and in beige,
Really?
like full on, yeah. And I was like, oh no, I'm not feeling this today.
Yeah.
And then I wore
No,
this.
black.
I felt more comfortable wearing black.
I think like yeah. I mean, my whole wardrobe's black, but yeah,
Oh, really?
literally the
Okay,
whole
I do
thing.
have some colour.
Yeah, like when I first met you, I think not that I could tell that your music would maybe have more layers to it than standard, I guess, like commercial music or whatever, but like I kind of went into it expecting like, okay, this could be interesting.
Okay.
And then when I heard it, it was actually wilder than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be quite mellow almost.
Oh really?
Yeah, because you're quite a relaxed person. I thought, a lot of the time, especially with like not that you're an R&B, but like when you meet like an R&B vocalist, they're always super chilled, and then their music reciprocates that. It very much is a reflection of their character. Whereas with you, I think you're very chilled, but I think maybe almost the same way that I do. Your music is like that output for you to be a bit more visceral. And so what definitely surprised me was your kind of choice of instrumentals, and how dark they were, I guess, which I really liked. But yeah, it was a surprise.
That's funny.
One thing, actually, sorry, I'm going to backtrack a tiny bit. One thing which I think you were talking about, which is really interesting, about how when you're writing your lyrics and being cryptic about it. So for me, my background is mostly in production. I've been producing for, like I've been releasing music at least now for about 10 years, going through kind of waves of doing a lot and doing little and then doing a lot, whatever.
10 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's a really long time, and obviously had a lot of experiences through it. But the thing with production that I really enjoy is that by nature it's cryptic, because you're essentially translating an emotion or a thought or a feeling or whatever into a chord structure, into instruments, into percussion, into whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so when the end user hears it, they're always going to feel those emotions in a different way. So like when I used to make music, again, it was an expression of sort of dark emotions I was feeling. And I didn't used to have any vocals, and a lot of the people who would listen to it would say, oh, this music's great for when I need to study, or this music's great for me to fall asleep to, which was almost shocking for me, because I'm kind of like, I'm showing my deepest thoughts, I'm converting it into piano, and then you study some
It's
books
like
to it. And like, you shouldn't take it offensively, because you should be appreciative of however people
people use
endorse your
your,
music, or however
yeah,
they use it in their day to day.
yeah.
But as when I was younger and when I was less mature, I really thought, man, these people, what are they talking about? And like, I actively started to push deeper and deeper into those kind of darker thoughts musically, almost trying to push those people away.
No.
Which is again, this is a really terrible way to act, but I basically, I kept doing that to the point where I did pull them away, and then I was like, oh my god, I've just lost half my fans.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you can always get them back.
You can, well, there's the thing, 'cause I think it's an important process, and nowadays, where I write lyrics, it's such a more direct form of conveying an emotional, conveying a thought, which is kind of why I asked you that question about do you ever have friends or anyone tell you it's too much? Because definitely since I've started putting lyrics, I find like, I don't want to say there's a pushback, but there is almost this kind of a shock, or like, I think it's similar kind of to how when I first heard your music, where I was shocked at how visceral it was. I think some people will sometimes hear my music and be surprised, like, oh, that guy, he seems pretty chill, he seems relaxed, and then the music he puts out is just him talking bad about himself and other people and whatever.
It is really funny how people perceive you after they've taken in your artwork or artworks. I don't know. I think with me, but I like it. I like the surprising element, because I feel like people will have preconceived notions of you anyway, and they will make up their mind of what type of person you are, if they can gel with you or not, and all these different things are happening prior to your interaction with this person. So for them to then go and listen to your work and then have a completely different view of you, I think it's interesting, because it shows how multifaceted we are, just in general, like as people, how multifaceted we are, how layered we are in how we express our emotions, our thoughts, how we interact with one another, which topics we want to engage in, and with who we want to engage it with, all these different things. So I feel like it's intriguing. I like that about people. I like that about music. Even like with artists that I really enjoy, some of them have passed as well. I get to know them still through their music, even though I've been watching lots of interviews and maybe went to a few of their shows. And then after their passing, I revisit the music that I listened to at the time when I got to know them, or when I got to know about their work. And it's like I'm learning more about this person, that there's like this parasocial relationship, so it's very one-sided, but still through learning more about them, I'm also trying to learn about what I value in life and what I value about music, or whatever it is that I am drawn to that specific piece of art that they created, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think it's nice, actually. Otherwise it would be so boring.
What, like, to have?
If you meet someone like an artist that you like, and then or even you just meet the person itself, because people think you're the artist at all times and that's it. But you're still
a human being.
You're still a human being. You still are all these different things. That is just one part of you, that you chose to present to people, which can also be very skewed. I choose specific parts and choose those chords or whatever, or those words, to portray a specific event that happened maybe 15 years ago. That does not say that that's me in its fullest form. That was me in that inkling, if that makes sense, in that moment.
Yeah, and I think that actually brings up a really good point. I think, just like, not even just in art, but in any, music and art is it's a study in itself. It can be a study of yourself. It can be a study of others, and with any form of study, at least for me, the goal is to kind of get to the most core and the very essence of what it is I'm trying to study, if that makes sense. And I think especially when you talk about music that might have darker tones to it, or very very personal tones to it. When you share stuff like that with the world, people can think really, they can think really not crazy things, but really, I mean, so like the best example is like I was dating this girl at a point in time, and I was releasing my music, and a lot of my music focused around negative parts of a relationship, and again, that was just for my release. I was happy in that relationship.
Okay.
But I remember like I went on a night out with some friends of ours, and like I go to sit down with this guy, and we talk about how we're doing, all this stuff, and he's like, "How you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, like I noticed you spend a lot of your time slagging off your girlfriend." And it's one of those things where it's like, I understand why he says that. That's how he's decided to, interpret the music, to put it into words.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, it couldn't be any further away from that. That's just a form of me coping. And if you want to listen to it, and if you want to enjoy it, and you want to understand my perspectives, by all means. But that doesn't. My music is not who I am. My music is just a part of who I am, and a way that I can. A way that I can release, and a way that I can kind of share certain emotions. But if this wasn't an art form, or like philosophy, for example, if someone was studying, the core of, human nature and human depression and this kind of stuff, you wouldn't go to that philosopher and ask him, "Are you depressed?" Because you would, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds silly, but
Yeah.
like when it comes to music, I think because there is that more emotional resonance, people assume that what you talk about is what you feel.
Yeah.
And kind of like you were saying, like I have songs as well where I haven't written them from my perspective. I've written them from the perspective of friends of mine who've gone through challenging things and have talked to me about those, and I've been able to get a new perspective on life because of them. And yeah, I think when you come at it from the perspective of a listener, you might not necessarily you might not necessarily know all that history there, and you always have your own way of interpreting it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just it's one of the interesting parts of being involved in a creative and a very personal business, I guess.
Okay.
But when you were talking about when artists have passed away. When artists have passed away for you, do you find that elicits an emotional response in you? Does it ever make you question your mortality?
Well, it's like a quick reminder, like, oh yeah, all of this will come to an end. Let me not get it twisted. I'm going to die. Yeah, it has been like a reminder, but then it's quickly clouded with, oh no, I feel like I've lost someone, simply because their work, even though we never met, their work has been of such importance to me, or even in like moments in my life that were very transformative. Their music gave me solace, or their music became almost like the theme song for certain specific events in my life that happened. So every time I think of that memory, it's like, oh, I hear the song of this artist again. And then they are no longer here. It feels like, oh no, it's like a part of me that's linked to their music is also like kind of tainted in a way, or so yeah, it does make me sad, but it's also a way to celebrate. I feel like because in my culture we celebrate when someone passes. You go to, a different realm. You celebrate the legacy that they left behind. We celebrate all the things that they brought to this life and the people that they affected in this life. Even though we don't want to die, we remember them, because it's almost like a reflection of ourselves, like it can be us that is, the next one in line to go. Um, and I feel like that's same with aging. I feel like when I look at my parents, but also like other people who are like older than me, my seniors, sometimes it's just a reminder like, oh, there will be one day, you know? And then I try to mentally prepare myself, but how on earth can you mentally prepare yourself, It's, yeah. And then I start to spiral and think of all these like hypotheticals. Like, I had this time where I was like, oh, well, I didn't ask this, so maybe I will ask you.
Yeah.
But I could answer maybe I will ask you, and then we can both answer it.
Sure.
If you had the choice to choose, then, well, yeah, obviously, if you had a choice to either die first or the ones that took care of you, so caregivers or your parents or whoever, who would you, like, what will be your choice? Will be you dying first or them dying first?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like
Well, like either one of the two is going to happen, so you got to pick.
yeah, it's like you're both gonna die anyway.
Yeah.
But like, I guess I'm trying to tackle this from like a suffering perspective.
Yeah.
Because it comes, in my opinion, I know that I am gonna be in great pain, and I feel like lots of people will have that when they're grieving. You'll be suffering as well because you lost a loved one. I guess the question that I'm trying to pinpoint is, will you allow suffering to be all self-consuming, so you're the one that's being that is suffering, or the people that you love are going to suffer? What's your choice then in that situation? I hope I explained.
No, I definitely understood. I definitely understood what you're trying to say. I think for me, and I've got a reason, but I think for me, I'd rather I was the one who suffered rather than those around me suffered. I think, I know how I personally deal with emotions, and maybe I'm looking at this from like a very mathematical perspective, but like, I know my own personal variables when it comes to death and when it comes to loss, and the potential emotions I could feel from that. And I guess when I think of how would, my mum or my dad react to the thought of me passing, I think, you don't know what else could come of that as a result, or, the kind of grieving that could lead to them. Whereas I feel like having to go through that myself would be more of a, I don't know what the word is. I think it'd be more of a process that I would be able to come to terms with, and
So you think you will have it more easy?
I don't know if I'd have it more easy. I think it's that maybe there have been points and times where I've reflected on the concept of death or losing people who I care about, and I think it goes from person to person. I think when you talk about people like your parents, they're older than you, and there is this general kind of agreed on concept that generally your parents will be the ones who pass away before you, or before their child. And that's why I think it's always such a tragedy when you see these things of children passing away before their parents, or that loss of kind of that family tree kind of a thing. And I think, as a result of that, or as a result of that being part of the culture I've grown up around, I've prepared myself slightly more to that idea. I don't think that doesn't mean I'll be fine if that happened. Of course, I'd be heartbroken. Yeah. And I think really for me, especially right now, and this kind of goes back to one of the things I was talking about at the beginning, there are certain things I want to achieve before any of that happens, because I want them to be able to see what I think I'm capable of, and I don't think
Mm.
I've reached that point yet.
Okay.
Um,
So you're more driven then to like
yeah,
put yourself out there, basically.
yeah, definitely. And I think, I think a lot of the things that I do in my day to day are driven by that, and I think, you know, the the concept of growing old and age, I don't think bothers me too much. I think I will probably live my life relatively similar to how I live it now, even when I'm 60 or 70. As far as how I treat myself and how I treat myself around other people, and how I show affection, all this kind of stuff. But I think there are certain things I want to do with my life before I reach then, and those are the kind of things which death potentially plays a role into. Like, I think, I mean, yeah, no one would ever want this to happen, but like the thought of like a tragedy happening to my parents or something like that, that's the kind of thing I think I would really struggle with, because I wouldn't have been able to show them, this is what I'm capable of yet. But yeah, it's a tough one, and I think that's partially also as well, if I was to go, why I would never want that to be the case, because again, it's kind of like, there's just things I want to get done, and there's stuff I want to have, just achieved in my life, that if it was to finish too soon, it would kind of be like, oh damn, that really sucks. Like, I don't know. What about you? Which of the two would you pick?
Yeah, I don't think I would want my parents to go through grief. So, but yeah, I don't know how I would handle it either. Because suddenly I feel like on that day I'll probably feel immensely alone, and I don't know if I'll be able to deal with that. But we all been through grief before, and lots of people lose their loved ones all the time, whether this is like predicted or not. So I don't think I'm going to be special in like how I'm going to deal with this, and that it's going to be difficult to deal with. I know it will be. But yeah, I don't actively think about these things, but sometimes it just like the thought comes to mind, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me make sure that I do this, or so it becomes like a motivator, like to do certain things, and not to be I guess I don't want to be lazy, so I do try to use that as a way to motivate myself. And it's not always about me thinking about death. It's more like, life, living life to the fullest, or at least try to live life to the fullest, and see it as a blessing, and seeing it as a gift. Because, it's just a one-time thing. After this, it's done. We don't know what's going to happen next. Regardless of whatever religion you subscribe to. I don't know the answers. I don't know how it's going to feel like. I don't know how I will come to my end. I don't know if it's going to be through betrayal, because I'll be really fucking angry about that part. But anyway, if that's the
how
way,
you go,
really, literally, I'll be waiting for that person in the spiritual world. I will make your life a hell. I'd rather not go like that,
Yeah.
But I've thought about those things too. Like,
Yeah.
at least when it happens, let it be quick or like painless, because that's the part that I don't like. Like, I don't like pain.
Yeah.
So it's bound to happen. Let it please be like chill, Let it be relaxed.
Let me go how I want to go.
Yeah. That would be cute. But
No,
yeah,
I think you make a really valuable point, especially around, reality is you never know when it's going to happen.
yeah. Scary as
It's
well.
really, I think that's why we don't think about it regularly, because if you thought about, or if you were constantly thinking, today might be the day I die, And that's the thing as well. Again, like there are a lot of things you can control in life, and
Mm-hmm.
you can look after your body, you can look after your health, you can, you know, do all these things to really um, do as much as you can to have that long-standing life.
Yeah.
And the
But
reality
even
is,
then, it's not even
no,
guaranteed.
that's what I mean. You could get hit by a car. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and I think especially with this friend of mine, um, he was one. He was an absolute genius. He was like the triple threat. He was good
Oh, really?
looking. He was
Oh.
super charismatic, and he was
Oh,
like,
that's dangerous.
he's dangerous.
That's dangerous.
He was super charismatic, and he was like unbelievably intelligent.
Oh, wow.
Like I can't remember. I think I don't know uni, so I can't say what uni he went to. But he was like, you know, he was just he was one of those guys who, if he'd had the chance, he would have achieved so much in his life.
Mm.
And he was so great at bringing people together. Like even when, in those first few years when I lived in London and I was kind of in quite a dark place,
Mm.
he was in uni here, and like every week he would be inviting me out for dinner and to catch up and to talk and all this kind of
That's
stuff,
nice.
which is really really
Very
sweet.
engaging.
Very engaging and really mindful of the people around him.
What have you learned because
Yeah.
of this then?
I think what I learned as a result was just that
I feel like a teacher.
hopefully I get an A star. No, I think what it just showed me is that you. I think one thing is that life isn't fair. You know, someone like that
Mm.
shouldn't have gone so early.
Mm.
So life isn't fair, and you never know what's going to happen. And as a result, really, just do the most whilst you can. And that doesn't mean spending all your money going on holidays, or you know, buying a fucking. Sorry, I swear it again.
No, it's fine.
Buying buying like a Rolex or stuff like that. I think,
Mm.
and at least again, this is through my own personal experience where I kind of went through a 3-year stint of trying to live my life like that, kind of trying to live the you know, working your 9 to 5 and then spending that money on holidays or spending that money on nights out. You know, you're in a constant cycle of you don't enjoy a large part of your time, so the free time you do have, you know, you spend all your cash and you try to pick yourself back up again. Whereas I found, really, at least for me personally, the real way of getting satisfaction is having your day to day, having that positivity within it, and having, you know, surrounding yourself with the right people, surrounding yourself in the right situations. And a lot of it is just actually just having people who you can talk about certain things to, because a lot of the time, well, again, when I was in that really introspective part of my life where I wasn't really around people, even like with that friend, obviously I really regret it, but I really distanced myself from him because I just wasn't in a good mind space, and he would be inviting me out and I'd just basically be saying no at a certain point. And yeah, like you just, if you can reach that point where the people around you help you grow, and the people, and you know, you're in the situations where you're grateful and happy to be in those situations 9 to 5, 24 hours a day, you know, Monday to Friday. That's not to say you won't have sad days, you won't have tired days, you won't have dark days,
Yeah.
but it's more that, you know, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel rather than kind of going day to day just trying to figure out whatever you can.
Yeah. I feel like it ties into being grateful, even though you're having the shittiest day that week or month or, you know, year. At least that's how I try to give myself space, because it's not going to be nice every day, all day. Sometimes it's going to be shit, but at least you're healthy, or at least you're surrounded by family, or at least you have a roof above your head, or at least you can eat, you know, you don't have trouble finding food, or, you know, so there's always something that I can like show gratitude for, and that's a way for me to ground myself, even though it's not always a great experience to be alive, and we are even living in a place where things are okay. Like there are people who are suffering right this moment, simply because of the environment they're in, you know. So I try to think about these things too, but it doesn't mean that I don't think about you know, existence and how it will impact people and how does it affect the people I love and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's scary. I like to, be in control, and I know that I won't have control over that. So sometimes I think about it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, let me center life, let me, be present, try to be more aware of your surroundings and be grateful for the experiences that you have, even for rejections. If you're being rejected, then it's not for you, and there's a reason for that. So I embrace that too, in a way. It's like a hidden blessing, in a way. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think like there's definitely a part to that where it's, we are all going to go through negative experiences, negative emotions, no matter who you are. And everyone will have their successes, and to have those successes there will always be challenges along the way. I think it's how you deal with those challenges and whether you let them consume you, or whether you I don't want to say find the positive within them, but more find a way to use those challenges and make the most of them, rather than letting them be the controller of you,
exactly.
kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Get the best of you, in a way.
Yeah, get the best of you, exactly. I think, on like a day-to-day basis, like, for me, my thing that I love doing is making music. Being a musician, there's a lot of things that come around being a musician that don't necessarily involve making music, and I'm sure you know what I mean. And to those of you listening, I'm sure even if you don't make music, or maybe you work a 9-to-5 job or whatever, there will always be parts of it which won't be ideal. And it can be very easy to focus on those parts of it, because it can feel like the I don't know, the bad part in that kind of picture perfect painting or whatever. But really, rather than focusing on that, if you're able to focus on the positives and see the good sides to that, I think that's the best way. This is a really silly example, but there's a thing called like PPL and PRS. Do you know about those? They're these. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's really not relevant. But they're called like collection and royalty societies. They basically, your music gets played in a bar, you get a bit of money from it. The process of signing up for those is horrible. It takes so long. It's not. It's just it takes forever. It's super like just typing a lot of information into different boxes and this and that, and it's really, really boring. It's whatever. And I remember doing it, and I was just like, God, this is like, I didn't sign up to be a musician to do this. Like, I was like, I can't wait to be this and that, and I can pay someone to do this for me. Like, really, just I was just in a really negative whatever. And then, I think like last month I got my actual like paycheck from like my stuff getting played in bars and cafes and this. Or like, I think there's like a yoga spot in Portugal that like randomly uses my music. It's really right. It's so random. Shout out to my homies in Portugal for repping that yoga. But it was one of those things. I was like, wait a minute, why was I being so negative? Like, I had to do 2 hours of paperwork, and it's led to like this, and it's just, it's just things like that where you really need to always look on the bright side of life, as cheesy as that sounds. We've got a little rave going on. Actually, it's dub as well.
Nice. Well, I have to.
We'll have to cut
wanna,
this out, yeah.
Shit.
Copyright strike, yeah.
Cute. Sounds nice.
Yeah. Wait, well, them to pass. I
Very
think.
melodic.
I know, right? It's like. It's almost like. What's it called? Liquid drum and bass, but like with a bit of.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you, actually.
Okay.
I know that I've talked about the fact that I fear death. Do you fear death?
In what sense?
Do you fear that like tomorrow could be your last day? Do you ever think about that? Okay. How do you stay away from those thoughts, or what kind of mindset do you have?
I'm just too busy. I don't even have the time to be thinking about this. I don't have the time. I guess sometimes when I'm like maybe when I'm like listening to some philosophers and they start talking about existence, I'm like, okay, yeah, well, the day will come, but it'll be just for that brief moment. Or when I'm watching a series or a movie or something, and someone comes to their end in a very like gruesome way or something, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a bit scary how that happened. I hope that doesn't happen to me. Something
Got
like
the guy
that.
like that, yeah.
Yeah.
I get you, I get you.
Or when you hear like just like stories in the news, how people die and like, oh, that's horrible. I really hope that doesn't happen to me in that way or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really fear it. I think sometimes, but it's like something will trigger it. Whether this is a series that I'm watching or a conversation that I had with someone, or I see something happening in front of me and it's looks like it's going to go left or something, I don't know, then maybe in that moment or in those moments I'm like, I'm a bit scared.
Yeah.
I could share a situation. I was it's funny because at the time I was like going to therapy because I wanted to like explore myself. I wanted to learn more about myself. So I decided to let me do therapy and start talking to this professional and see what comes out of it. And I think it was maybe a few days later. Well, let me start with the actual thing. So I decided to go for a walk because I was inside all day. So, but it was quite dark already. It was like maybe around 9:30. So it was this was somewhere maybe last year. I think it was somewhere last year. It was quite dark already. But I was like, let me just go for a walk and maybe go to a park. So I was like walking and I was actually listening to a live stream. So these two guys were talking about, I don't know, something, I don't even remember what it was about, but it was quite a very hefty topic. So I was really like interested, very invested in the conversation. So I was walking, listening, and then I saw the park, and like it's up to the entrance, I suppose, there was light, and then after it's like pitch black. So I was like, shall I do it? Shall I not do it? Shall I do it? Shall I not do it? And I told myself in my mind, oh, it's just your body trying to like, steer you away from going to places that might be scary. Just like force yourself to, do things out of your comfort zone. Just walk into the darkness. Walk into the darkness. Nothing will happen. Yeah. So I was like, okay, because I physically felt my body was like, don't go in. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. I was not listening. I was ignoring it. So I was walking. I was entering the park. Yeah. It was getting dark, and obviously I looked back, and I was like, the lights were starting to like get smaller and smaller. I was walking. I was listening to it, and literally, it's funny how the brain works. I was walking, and it was like pitch black, but there was like some kind of like a river or like some kind of water there, and I saw like a silhouette. I was like, okay, that's quite strange. Why? And it was like, and suddenly I saw like light. So I think it was a person that like
on their phone or something.
Took their phone out, but it was like dark. Like you're in the, like pitch black, standing there on your phone. I was like, that's a bit strange. Yeah. Anyway, prior to that moment, which is like maybe 2 minutes before I saw that, I was walking further into the park, getting more dark and dark, and then my brain started to like switch off the conversation I was listening to. So I was just like noise. Yeah. Like I was literally trying to listen while I was like the conversation that they were having. Yeah. I wasn't taking it in. It was like my brain was just like, be alert, like look around you, like, and I was like, okay, let me just take this off. And let me just straight on walk. And then I saw the silhouette. I was like, okay, maybe I should move. Maybe I should turn back, go back. Because I was like, okay, this is a bit scary and strange. Because obviously there was no one there, and it was pitch black, and it was just like a random person there, right next to the water. I'm like, okay, maybe I should like be more careful. So I decided to walk back, and then I called my dad, and he spoke to me over the phone, like trying to calm me down. But he was like, "What even are you doing in the park?" And like, it's almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
What are you doing in the park where there are no lights? But yeah, he calmed me down. But I felt like it was more like an achievement for me, because I know that my body and my brain will say, don't do things out of your comfort zone. But in this case, it's more like a safety thing, that there is a term for it. I forgot, but it's like to keep yourself safe, basically. Like maybe not fight or flight. Well, maybe flight, like a coping mechanism, some kind of thing, to like steer you away from potential danger.
Yeah.
And I just pushed myself to go in and do, simply because I was like stubborn, because I wanted to like do something out of my comfort zone. But that very thing could have gotten me killed, basically, because I'm like being reckless out here, you know.
I mean, it's the curiosity, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's curiosity too. But then it wasn't that long ago since this lady that was murdered in Clapham Park.
Yeah.
So when I got home and spoke to my housemates, they're like, "Oh yeah, you should not do that, because I think her name is Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah. Yeah, she was found dead in the park or something."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh wow, okay. Well, I'm not gonna go to a park anymore at night." And she was not even like, it wasn't even that late, I believe, when she was walking around.
No, it wasn't. I think that's the thing as well.
Really
like,
scary.
There's what's it called? Stuff like that really can change your perspective on certain things, and it's funny now because like I've lived in London now for maybe 8 years, and like when I first moved here, I would cycle through parks at night. I don't think I'd ever do it nowadays unless I was. I don't know. I'm
scared that people managed to do it here, because this is also pitch black.
Yeah, This one's pretty dodgy.
There's no light anywhere.
Yeah. But like when I go back to my family's, they live in the countryside. I mean, there's not really like another person for miles. There are other houses, but it's, you know, when you go out in the middle of the night, it's pitch black, but there's no one there. But I still have those same like kind of like you were saying, like suddenly I don't really pay attention to what people are saying around me. Or like me and my sister, we once went out. She's 5 years younger than me, and she could not care any less. She was happily walking around in the darkness and that the whole time. My senses were just on like high alert, just like. And it's funny as well, and this is completely going off topic, but you know, the human brain always tries to rationalize objects and things when it can't tell what it's looking at. And I remember actively seeing people like around me. There wasn't anyone, but it was just that, like, you know, you see a couple trees move, and my brain, through my experience, thinks, "Oh, I've seen a person," or like, you know, it's such a it's such a.
Really, the brain really fools you, man.
Do you know what I mean?
It's so fucking scary.
It's really crazy.
Because then you're basically hallucinating, but then you just like constantly need to just like fact check in a way, like, is this an actual tree, and then needs to be confirmed. I feel like you're always hallucinating, but then if you're content with your reality, it's fine, because like, okay, this is not a threat.
Yeah.
But the minute you cannot place it, it's like, okay, I might need to fear for my life now.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, it's funny.
Well,
I'm not doing it anymore. But I was like being stubborn. I was like, oh, it's not a big deal, you know. Let me just walk to a park and back.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that I have to feel like fearful.
Yeah.
You know, even regardless of gender.
Yeah.
It should be safe, you know. You just want to have a nice walk and not fear for your life. You know, but yeah, it's reality. It's the world we live in anyway. So,
and I think you kind of gone to something which I was thinking about, but I wasn't sure if it would really fit the topic. So I've been, I've had 3 people try to rob me in my life, which is a weirdly high number.
Oh shoot! Yeah.
2 of them
in London.
1 in London and 2 in Italy.
Okay.
The 2 in Italy both failed, and then the 1 in London was successful.
How did they do it? Was there a weapon involved?
So the 1 in London, there was a weapon. I'll give small quick things. So the first one was just some guy came up behind me and he was like it's really, really silly, but he was like putting his fingers into my back
Oh.
and saying like, I've got a gun, like give me your stuff. And like I was just like, I could tell that's not a gun, and he kind of backed away. It was pretty chill. That was whatever. But it still kind of shook me just to
Yeah.
think that like, oh yeah, someone could just come up to me with a gun and stick it in my back if it was a real gun. Obviously
yeah,
it wasn't,
yeah.
but it was fine. The second one, I was.
You were still brave to say.
I know.
I cannot say that. Oh well, it's not a real gun, or I
Yeah,
don't
you know what I
feel
mean. I was just like,
that.
it was almost one of those like instinct things where I just, I should have probably actually been smarter about how I acted in that situation, but at the time I just
Yeah.
whatever. The second time, I got tackled by someone just in the street,
no.
and they just like pushed me to the ground and whatever, and we had a little scuffle, but they didn't manage to get anything off me.
So they just came up, ran up to you.
So they walked up to me and they said, "Hey, how you doing? What's your name? This and that." I said,
Ew.
"Yeah, really weird." It was really weird, and it was at like 2 a.m.
Okay.
in the morning as well. There was
Oh, no.
there was lots of lights, but I just thought there was some drunken guy, or whatever.
Yeah.
Starts walking, say, "Hey, who are you? This and that."
Who are you?
Yeah.
Who the F are you?
And so this is a very typical thing. Like Italy's a lot better now. I grew up in Italy when I was growing up. There was a fair bit of racism and a lot of stereotypes and whatever. And the thing which always happened, people say, "What's your name?" I'd say Jordan, and they go, "Oh, like Michael Jordan," even though that's his last name. But anyways, so.
Oh God.
So the guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, what's your name? Like, who are you?" This and that. I said, "My name's Jordan." He's like, "Oh, like Michael Jordan?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know much about basketball, but let me show you some football." And he just tackled me.
What?
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. And he started reaching into like my pockets and then had a little scuffle.
And you weren't afraid that he had maybe something on him?
Again, like it was just very instinctual, and I just
Really quick as well.
yeah, it all happened in the space of a couple seconds. At the moment, it feels like it's taking forever, but like I don't really remember seeing anything. I just remember feeling hands and trying to get up and whatever. But again, that was one of those weird ones where, similar to death, you don't think someone's just going to come up to you in the street and try and take you down.
Yeah, true.
And really, nothing really is there to stop that from happening to you. It's just that we
Yeah.
live in a society where we frown on that, and it doesn't happen as a result. The last one in London, I basically got surrounded by a group of guys. One pulled out a knife and said, "Give me your coat."
Give you your coat.
Yeah, give me your coat.
That's a coat.
Yeah,
No
basically,
money, no nothing.
no, basically, I used to, do you know like Stone Island? I bought a really expensive coat. It's like, it was my like Christmas treat to myself. And basically, yeah, it has a badge on it, so it's very obvious that it's it's their brand. The guy saw the badge and came up to me. They surrounded me and said, "I need your coat."
No way.
Yeah. And that was for sure. At the beginning, I was kind of like, like I almost couldn't believe what was happening. I was like, "Oh, it's fine." Like, because with the other ones, it was 1-to-1. Having like 8 guys around you can't do anything. I just felt powerless, and I just started blabbering like, "Oh, like this isn't happening," kind of a thing. And then he pulled a knife out, and then that was when it was like, this is for real. And like, I'd only had that coat for like 2-3 months.
No.
I was like, come on, man, like the amount I've had to pay
This
for
is why I
per
don't
wear.
like wearing brands anyway.
Yeah,
you know?
same.
Like flashing it and stuff. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm very like subtle. You know?
100%,
I
100%.
can appreciate it more as well when you're well dressed, and it's not like you're like a walking billboard for
Yeah.
other brands. Like it's even it's like a small logo, it's fine. Like well dressed, well kept together, and you can still see like, oh, okay, maybe that's Prada or something. You know, that's
But keep it
cute.
low-key.
Like
Don't
low
put it
key,
in
you know.
your
Not
face,
that,
kind of
sometimes I don't understand like with people that having it everywhere, loads of chains and stuff. Like this is like, are you aware that you could attract the wrong people?
Yeah.
Well, I guess people are aware, but also they want to live their life, and I understand that. Like, you should live how you want to live. It should not be an excuse for people to now, like, come and grab you and steal from you, but still, like, it is the reality of, like, doing that might put you in danger as well. So,
Exactly.
Like,
And I think that's the thing, like we say as a society, you can't do this, you can't do that, because if you do, you'll go to prison, or this and that will happen to you. But those are just words, and those are just things that will happen as a result. There's nothing stopping that initial act. And I think, especially with with that when I got robbed that time. I just thought like, you know, damn, like we really are. We are all equal in the sense that none of us are invincible, and
Yeah,
none of
yeah,
us,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
when it comes to it, you know, it's always just you against others, in that sense of the term.
What is your best defense tactic for the next one? You had three. You had three.
Yeah, I know.
Shots.
You'd think I'd start carrying a knife on me or something. No, no. I think, you know what? I think where I actually fear death right now, I think for me it would just be let whatever happens. Like don't try and fight it. Like I know people who have
Oh no, I
been
don't know. I
confronted
don't
by
know.
people with knives and
Really?
actually try and fight the person.
Oh
And have
really?
gotten, like, they've actually
Because
survived it.
that. Oh, they.
No, they haven't gotten stabbed. I don't know. I would never do that. I don't think
Yeah,
I could
same.
personally. And I think, you know.
I think I would try to talk myself out of
Yeah.
it. But then you really need to be a great conversationalist. You know, you really need to know how to. I guess it's about manipulation, knowing
Yeah.
how to manipulate people, or knowing how to be a smooth talker.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously they want something from you. So,
Yeah.
what can you still satisfy them without giving up the thing that they desire? You know, and still go away scot free. Yeah, I don't know.
I
feel
think it's
like,
a tough one though, because
yeah.
I think.
But it's a great skill to have, even though
Yeah.
when people think like, you know, like learning languages and like learning how to communicate properly and understand conversations and, you know, and standing up for yourself and all these different things. These are skills that people, I feel like they all need to be learned, and listening skills and all that stuff, knowing how to properly listen. Because you never know when that might be of great use. Like literally, it doesn't even have to be like to get through an interview, but it could literally be the very thing that could save your life if
Yeah.
you know how to talk. Really, but it could also be like glamorized in like Hollywood films and stuff where they're like, oh, you say stuff and then like, oh, suddenly they're not going to kill you anymore. It's like, yeah, I thought that was the intention. I thought you were going to come and kill me, but now I said this. You're not going to
Now
do that
you're cool,
anymore.
yeah,
No,
now
that
we're
we're cool. That we're cool. I said this, but yeah, I feel
th-
like you still need to make sure.
I think a lot of it is evaluating the situation. There's a really funny
Yeah.
story, and I don't know how true this is, because I think it's partially like hearsay. There's an artist, there's a rapper called Chief Keef, who's
Oh, I've heard of him.
really famous, like 2013 to 2016. Really,
Wasn't he an abuser? Didn't he like?
I'm not saying he's a good person. I'm just
Okay.
giving an example, like with him. I don't know if he's an
That's
abuser,
interesting.
but
I mean, what I heard was, well, this is off topic, but what I
Yeah.
heard was about that he was abusing his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend or
Really?
something. Yeah,
I mean,
but I don't know if
yeah.
that's him or if
Yeah.
it's someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, it could. I don't know. It could
be
totally
him,
true.
could be
But
someone else. Yeah, I don't know.
basically, so his like audio technician, the way that he first met him was his audio technician was he was robbing the audio technician.
No way.
And then this might just be hearsay, so I can't say
Okay.
100%, but apparently he found him in the street and he was trying to rob him, and I think he started to talk to him or something, and like he was like, oh, do you like music or this and that, and he mentioned that he was a rapper, and he's like, oh, like rather than rob me, like I could help you with your music career. And then he's now like, yeah, it's such a like
I was still reject you. Literally, I was still
I know, I don't
reject you. You literally wanted to come and rob me, and now I'm helping you. What? I will literally forever will think of that moment. Well, I mean, kudos to both
I
of
think
them, I guess.
it's just an
but
interesting like, you know, talking about understanding situations.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
situations,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting how
Yeah.
he managed to, rather than get robbed, take that away from it and
Yeah.
kind of build a relationship as
Yeah.
a result. Not saying you should, if
Which is
someone robs
also-
you, like offer
Yeah,
your audio
yeah,
services,
yeah.
but like it's just really knowing in that situation, is your life at risk, or you know, is it?
this is someone that is just like not in the right mindset
Yeah, do
at that
you know what I
time.
mean?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't have another story, but I do actually like the stories. I don't know. I've never been robbed.
Yeah.
I've had like one situation. Well, there was Brixton. This was like, when was this? Maybe in 2017. It was late. I used to walk in Brixton, like at night all the time, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning
Really?
on my own.
Yeah. What, did you live around there or?
At the time, I lived close to Brixton. And I know that people said, like, oh, it's dangerous at night, so especially around that area. I was like, it's cool. Like, I always see the same people, the same shop owners.
Yeah.
We have a quick chat or we lock eyes and, you know, it's cool.
Yeah.
So I never feared, like, something bad could happen. But there was this one time a friend came to visit me and we wanted to go out and we were walking. But it was like around 2 a.m., I believe, 2 or 3 a.m. And as we were walking, because there was almost no one, like, around. Like, the streets was, like, just completely empty. Like, a few lights on. Yeah, we were walking, and there were two guys walking towards us. So we were, like, facing each other. We're walking, and then they started to walk slower. And in my head, I was like, okay, this is not a good sign. And they kept on, and then they started saying, like, vulgar things, like insinuating, insinuating that they were going to assault us. And in my head, I remember my friend whispering, saying, like, don't say anything, let's just walk faster.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was ready to open my mouth.
What, and start spitting back at them?
Yeah, I was ready to do it. And there was one thing that stopped me. I was like, just think for 1 second. You're alone with her, and there are these two guys who looked like they had something on them.
Yeah.
It was around 2 a.m. It's dark. There's almost no one around. Like, yeah, there was almost no one around. So even if we would scream or whatever, it probably would take time for someone even to come and help.
Even if they did come, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Even if they would come in the first place, and if they had something, they could have harmed us anyway.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is the perfect moment not to say anything, like, because I'm ready to talk to you, or to instigate or challenge you if you don't come correct. And it's just that one time that I was like, let me not speak today. Let me not speak.
I'm gonna keep it.
Let me keep walking and not even, like, look, because I make eye contact, and I think a lot of people see that as one, an invitation, or two, as a threat.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if I'm gonna do that right there and then, it's gonna cause problems.
Yeah.
So let me not do it. But that's the one thing that I'm like, that saved my life.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it was saving my life, but it really, I feel like, avoided some kind of problem that could have developed.
Or just something that could have gone to something bigger.
Yeah. It was too late. There was no one there. So, but yeah, that's my only experience, I guess.
No, I think that's totally fair. I think also, like, there's nothing. I feel like as a society, we're always like, oh, if someone chats shit about you, you gotta fight back. You gotta do this and that. Do you know what I mean?
I do like the UK slang or saying. It says chat shit and get
Get
banged.
hit. Yeah, get banged. That's what it was.
I do like that.
And that's what I mean. Like, it's such a societal thing that, like, oh, you can't. And maybe I'm thinking about it wrong, but for me, I'm just like, oh, who gives a shit? Like, if.
Yeah, you can really contain your ego.
Yeah, I really can.
Really?
Yeah. I had.
Sometimes I cannot. But I guess it comes about evaluating, as you said, the situation, knowing that when you need to shut up, and when you feel like you can run your mouth.
You know, and I think, I guess there is a part of it that's an ego thing, but I just, you know, if you know yourself within yourself, to a degree, it shouldn't really matter if someone says shit to you on the street. Like, obviously, if it's something that happens repeatedly, I can understand why that would impact you. And, like, you do see, especially with, like, celebrities, where their life doesn't become private anymore, it has massive impacts on their mental health. But like I was walking in Bethnal Green at, like, midnight, like 2 weeks ago or something.
This is recent then.
Yeah, recent. This isn't like an especially bad story, but I was walking through Bethnal Green.
Yeah.
And I was walking with this girl.
Yeah.
And she was like a different ethnicity to me. And we're not like in a relationship or a couple, but just a guy and a girl walking down the street. And obviously the fact that we were different ethnicities, someone rolls down their, like, window and starts shouting and that. Yeah, I know, it's super crazy, but, like, it just happened.
To both of you? Or
to both of us. I literally, look, I'm super dumb. I don't even hear what they said, but like
Okay.
it really had an impact on her, and she
Oh
was like
no.
really like kind of shooken by it, and I was kind of just like, I definitely get it, and it's not a positive thing that happens to you, but you know, you just I don't. It's a real tough conversation to have and a real tough topic because everyone will feel differently about it. But I think from my perspective, the thing that's worked for me is just thinking, you know what, that person can say what they want. I don't know you. I don't give a fuck who you are. Like, I'm still gonna
Yeah.
be me. I'm still gonna like be pushing to do what I want with my life and doing the most.
Yeah.
The thing which does have an impact on me, and I shouldn't be talking about what will have an impact on me, but the things that do impact me is when people who I care about maybe have those reactions to certain things. Like, if
To you.
yeah,
as in towards you. Oh, okay,
towards
okay,
me
okay.
or towards things that I do. So like if someone whose opinion I really care about maybe says something negative about me, I'll be in bed for a week thinking,
Yeah,
oh damn, like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
my god, that's crazy,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But if it's someone you don't know, like there are so many idiots out there. There are so many amazing people as well, but there are so many idiots out there that like don't let a random person's
Yeah.
way of thinking or
Still hard.
it's still really difficult, I think. And like again, like I'm a guy, it's potential that like there are a lot of things that might happen to a woman that I'm not used to. When I was a kid, I used to have an afro, and in Italy that was unheard of. I used to have people who would literally just come up to me in the street and just start touching my hair because
Oh my God,
it's
that's
actually
so
mental.
bad.
It's super mental. They take
So
photos of
weird.
me like this and that and whatever, and like it definitely had
Terrible.
it had a really negative impact on me, and it really what's the word?
Should have said chat shit.
Yeah, no, just going around Florence, just smacking everyone.
Oh, we're not promoting
Yeah,
violence. We're not promoting violence, or we're not doing that.
Nah,
But, yeah.
never.
But still, stand up for yourself.
Mental punches. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Headbutts.
Oh, no.
But like, yeah, so I found that process really challenging, and then once I'd left Italy and once I came to London, I found that the one positive thing I could take away from it was that I'd had to learn how to not care about what other people thought, because I'd spent, probably, I think I had that afro for a few years, but I'd spent years of my life where everywhere I went, I didn't feel welcome, or I felt different to everyone else. And once I came to somewhere like London, where it's normal for there to be black people, it's normal for you to, I feel like I dress like an NPC, if you know what I mean. Like I keep it very casual, and I like that. I like being able to blend in the background, but at the same time, if someone was to say something to me, I couldn't care less now.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know.
You do look sophisticated, so that could
I
be
look
like
a little bit classy today.
yeah. Which could be the very thing that gets you noticed as well.
Yeah.
Because some people would like to have it more streetwear or
it's
casual streetwear or whatever. And if you come like all like classy look, then you're the target now.
Yeah, it's true, it's
so
true.
yeah, it can be anything. I feel like if people want to come for you, they will.
And I think, sorry, one
Yeah.
thing that actually this is again a super recent one. I went out like a month ago to this, it was like a streetwear brand's like launch party.
Okay.
And I dressed very similar to how I was dressed today. And I'm trying to think of a way to say this that doesn't sound negative, but basically every single like black guy who'd come in like a hoodie and that kind of fit were coming up to me like, oh bro, you look mad different, like this and that. Like it was kind of weird, and I was just like, and again it didn't faze me. I was kind of like, I kind of rated the fact that it was like, yeah, it's true, like I could have pulled up in my like Nike Tech, you know what I mean, but like that's not me.
But it was a compliment then, right? They were all complimenting
I
you,
don't know
or-
if it was a compliment. I think it was
Oh.
almost like you kind of stand out from the rest of the pack, but almost like we should be like this, you know.
Okay. That is interesting.
Yeah, it's a really weird thought, and like it was, like I definitely can take like I took it personally, but
Yeah.
I think the intention behind it was almost like you're not part of the crew, like you're kind of
Really?
yeah, a little bit, and I think
What made you think that? Because it could have been a positive thing.
I think it was the tone of voice that came with it,
Okay.
and it was kind of how I found myself interacting with them throughout the rest of the night. Like, so it
Okay.
was in like Shoreditch, and then we went down to Brick Lane, like a group of us. And yeah, like it was just like I never like you'd have your little circle, and I was never quite in the circle. I'd be talking to someone outside of it,
Yeah.
and then we went to like a house party afterwards, and like I met someone at the house party, and I was chatting to them for most of the evening rather than the actual people who I'd come along with.
That's a shame.
It can be seen as a shame, but I was kind of just like, look, I'm gonna meet people who fuck with me,
Regardless.
who are
Yeah.
into who
Yeah,
I
yeah,
am and
yeah.
what I do, rather than like, you know, I'm sure I could still get along with those people,
Right.
but it's just that if you're gonna take me at face value, then yeah, maybe you're not gonna be as
Yeah.
interested to want to talk to me or whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. That probably means that we're not gonna be as compatible when it comes to things like art and to music and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is, man. You know, you're never gonna get along with everyone. It's
Yeah,
just
it's
part
a
of-
shame. Like, it's
Yeah.
still a shame that people will then judge you and write you off simply because you're not dressed a certain
yeah,
way.
that's true.
I feel like it happens all the time, but still, if it's
Doesn't
people
mean
that
it's a
you're
good
going,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
and people that you know that that you are going to a party with, for
Yeah.
instance, then it's not nice when that happens.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, I am like I can wear casual and then
Yeah.
be very feminine and
Yeah.
then be all in tracksuits, and so
Yeah.
I like the diversity in that. Like that should not be a thing that people should write you off for,
Yeah.
you know? It's a bit weird. But yeah,
That's it.
anyway. Well, it's getting darker. So I guess we will have to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. How was the conversation for you? Did
Yeah,
we,
it was really good.
Yeah.
It was good fun. Like, it's quite nice. So I went to like a talk like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, damn, I'd love to be up there. And now I feel like I'm basically doing that.
Ah, nice. What kind of talk was it then?
It was a talk about mental well-being and world building in music.
Oh,
If
sounds cool.
there's a group called HQI who do a bunch of free talks. So if anyone listening to this, if you're interested in kind of working creative spaces or hearing from artists, like I don't know if you know Mickey Blanco, he's doing a talk with them, or maybe it's they are doing a talk with them. I don't want to use the wrong pronoun, but yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, definitely give them a check out. Can I also shout out one thing?
Yeah.
So I'm doing an event on
Absolutely
December
not.
10th.
Absolutely not. I'm gonna cut you here.
No,
go
yeah,
for it.
so I'm doing an event. This is for the people who've made it to the very end of the whole talk.
Yeah, exactly. If you're still here, then thank you.
I'm doing an event on December 10th where I'm kind of getting artists I really respect and DJs I really respect and kind of bringing them under one roof. And OYOKO is going to be one of the people performing. So if you want so if you want to see her perform, if you want to see me perform, we're going to be performing December 10th at the Glove That Fits in Hackney. It should be a really, really amazing night. A lot of really different kind of acts coming together. But I think if you're open-minded, you could really enjoy
December
it.
10th?
Yeah.
I thought it was November.
No,
November.
December
No
10th.
way.
Yeah. What?
No, it should be fine.
It should be fine. Okay. About to cancel me.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. No, because I know that I have a hair appointment, but it's like during the day.
Yeah, it's not going to be at like 10 o'clock in the evening.
No, good.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. So we've still got a good amount of time, but yeah.
Shoot, because I have the dance performance the week after.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, all coming together.
Yeah.
Sick.
Oh, that gives me much more time.
Yeah.
Then. Cute.
No, I picked it because I remember we talked about that. And I was like, I wanna make sure that
I don't know why I thought it was still end of November then.
I don't know.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, if you can come and check us out. We're in London, so for those who are in London, feel free to come and support. And yeah, I guess if you have any questions or if you have any comments or any of the topics that we discussed, feel free to leave it in the comment section. I will put Moonkay's information in the description, so you can go and check the work out as well. And yeah, I guess if there's anything, then you will probably let me know so I can add that as well.
Sure.
But yeah, that's it. So I'm gonna wrap it up. Do you want to say one final thing, or is this
No, I
done?
think that's all good to go. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're all good.
Well, I hope you are well. I hope you go well. I hope you
Hope you
stay
well.
Yeah. Okay, we have to do this again. I hope you are well. I hope you go well.
Hope you stay well.
And I will see you in the next video. Deuces.